Have you ever really thought about energy? I mean, not just flipping a light switch, but the actual, fundamental force behind everything. The sun, trees growing, even just us thinking right now. How does that breakfast you had turn into, well, the ability to move, to focus, to just be?
Yeah.
It's everywhere, the real currency of existence.
Mm-hmm.
So today, we're going deep. We're diving into this fascinating microscopic world of redox and bioenergetics.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some really interesting material here to sort of unpack how life actually manages all this energy, how it translates raw power into biology.
Exactly. And our mission really is to cut through some of the complex terms and get right to the core of it for you. We want you to grasp the absolutely vital role of electron transfers, how they govern energy, and what basic laws dictate how energy flows in living things, and even how we can figure out if life's key reactions are even possible. Think of this as your shortcut, sort of to understanding the basic language of energy in life, so you can feel genuinely clued in on this really crucial topic.
Okay, let's unpack that first term then. Redox. It sounds.
Yeah, pretty technical, like straight out of chemistry class. But what are we actually talking about? Oxidation, reduction, in simple terms.
Right, they can sound a bit daunting, but honestly, at its heart, redox is just about electrons moving around. Think of it like tiny negatively charged particles playing, I don't know, hot potato. So oxidation, that's when an atom, a molecule, loses electrons. And reduction is when it gains them. Fundamentally, that's it.
Okay, losing or gaining. Simple enough. But I've also heard it described as, unequal sharing. How does that fit in?
Good point. Because it's not always a clean handover, an electron just jumping ship. Often, especially in the molecules that make up life, it's more like a tug of war. See, different atoms have different strengths for pulling on electrons. We call that electronegativity. So if one atom in a bond is really strong, a real electron hog, it pulls those shared electrons closer. Even though they're still shared, effectively, it's gained some electron density, and that's a kind of reduction.
And the other atom, the one losing the tug of war, that one's being oxidized. It's lost some of that electron cloud, so to speak. And here's the critical bit, something our sources really stress. The actual chemical energy stored in a molecule. It's held by those electrons in their bonds. So it follows, right? When energy is lost, electrons are usually lost or pulled away into a more stable state, lower energy. And when energy is gained, electrons are gained, or they're pulled into a higher energy, maybe less stable situation.
So the electrons are the energy currency, their position, who holds them tighter, that dictates the energy.
Precisely. It's a direct link.
Okay, let's make that real. Our sources use carbon as an example central to life. Take methane, CH4. Carbon bonded to 4 hydrogens. The source says carbon has more electron density there. How does that illustrate the point?
Perfect example. Yeah, in methane, carbon is seen as more reduced. Why? Well, hydrogen isn't very electronegative. Carbon pulls those shared electrons a bit closer. So you can imagine carbon having a slightly bigger share of the electron cloud in those bonds. And that state, it means those electrons have higher energy. They're in a relatively less stable setup. Methane's packed with potential energy because of that.
Okay, higher energy in methane. Then what about the other end? Carbon dioxide, CO2. What we breathe out. Carbon bonded to 2 oxygens. There, the source says carbon has less electron density. What's happening?
Right. Oxygen, unlike hydrogen, is a major electron hog. Hugely electronegative. So in CO2, those oxygen atoms pull the shared electrons really strongly towards themselves. They practically strip them away from the carbon.
So carbon ends up electron poor in CO2.
Exactly. Effectively fewer electrons around it. And the key thing to remember here is that CO2 is described as the most stable common carbon molecule. It's the most oxidized form. That stability means those electrons are now in a much, much lower energy state. They've given up their potential.
Wow. So it's a journey from high-energy, electron-rich carbon in methane down to this low-energy, stable, electron-poor carbon in CO2. Like electrons rolling downhill, releasing energy. And this isn't just abstract chemistry, is it? This is happening in us.
Constantly, yeah. So just to formalize it based on the sources, reduction is that gain of electrons, makes the atom more negative or reduced. And oxidation is the loss of electrons, makes it more positive.
Okay, gain and loss. Reduction and oxidation.
These are the absolute bedrock transactions of energy in all living things.
So if something loses electrons, gets oxidized, something else has to gain them, right?
Yeah.
Get reduced. You can't just have oxidation happening on its own.
You've hit the crucial point. That's where it gets really interesting, as the source material points out. Reduction and oxidation must happen together, always. They're totally inseparable, like 2 sides of the same coin. An electron can't just vanish into nothing. If one thing loses it, another must accept it immediately. That simultaneous transfer is why we call them redox reactions, reduction oxidation, one single event.
Right. Redox. Not two separate things, but one combined process.
Exactly. And that principle is absolutely fundamental for how energy moves around in life.
Okay, that's a big takeaway, the inseparable duo. So thinking about these electrons, you mentioned they carry energy, but they also have a negative charge, right?
Yes, precisely. And that's what makes them so incredibly versatile in biology. You have to keep both aspects in mind. An electron represents a unit of potential energy, yes, but it also represents a unit of negative charge. Two key properties.
Okay, two properties, energy and charge. But if they're units of energy, do all electrons carry the same amount of energy? Like, is one electron always worth, say, 5 energy points no matter what?
That's a really sharp question. And the answer, based on our sources, is definitely no. They don't all have the same energy level. Think back to methane and CO2. An electron in methane, it's like a ball perched high on a hill, lots of potential energy, ready to roll down. But an electron in CO2, it's already at the bottom of the valley. Much more stable, much less potential energy to release.
So the energy level depends on the electron's environment, the molecule it's in.
Exactly. Electrons in less stable molecules generally have more energy than electrons in more stable ones. But, and this is crucial for other things like nerve signals, all electrons have the exact same negative charge. That property is constant.
Ah, I see. So the energy varies, but the charge is fixed.
Yep.
So if I'm getting this, the entire, energetic basis of love photosynthesis, making proteins, thinking it's all about moving electrons from high energy spots to low energy spots.
Yeah.
And capturing that energy difference along the way.
You've absolutely nailed it. That's the essence of metabolic energy. And biology is incredibly clever about using both properties, the energy and the charge. Some processes are all about harvesting that energy drop, like when your cells break down glucose, that's catabolism. Others rely mainly on the charge. Think about nerve impulses. That zap of electricity is basically moving charges, ions, which are charged because they've gained or lost electrons.
Right, like sodium and potassium ions moving across membranes.
Exactly. And then some processes, incredibly, use both the energy release and the charge movement to do really complex jobs. It makes electrons the ultimate multitaskers in the cell, the real workhorses.
Okay, workhorses moving energy and charge around. We've tracked these electrons, seen how their energy changes with stability, but life isn't just random reactions. How does a cell know if a reaction, moving electrons from A to B, is even possible energetically? Is there a set of rules?
There absolutely is. And that's where we zoom out a bit to this bigger concept, bioenergetics.
Bioenergetics. Okay, break that down for us. Is it just like the cell's energy budget spreadsheet?
That's actually not a bad way to think about it. Bioenergetics basically describes how energy is transferred and used in living systems. And crucially, it's not some special life magic. It follows the same fundamental rules that govern energy everywhere in the universe. We're talking physics and chemistry laws, especially thermodynamics, the science of energy changes, and this key idea of free energy.
Free energy, what does that tell us?
Free energy change, often written as delta G, tells us how much energy is actually available or free to do useful work during a reaction. And this is where its real power lies. It gives us a measure of the energetic feasibility of that reaction. It allows us to predict whether a reaction can actually happen spontaneously under certain conditions. It doesn't say it will happen quickly, but it tells us if the energy balance sheet works out. Is it energetically favorable or not?
Like a gatekeeper. Okay, if the free energy change is right, the reaction can happen. If it's wrong, it just won't.
Pretty much, yeah. It tells us the potential. You need to consider, what energy and matter the system can swap with its surroundings. That all feeds into whether a pathway is viable.
That's huge. So bioenergetics predicts possibility. But what about speed? Cells need things to happen fast. Does bioenergetics cover reaction speed too?
Another excellent question and a super important distinction to make. Bioenergetics only cares about the start and end points, the initial energy state and the final energy state. It tells you nothing, absolutely nothing about the path taken to get there, the mechanism, or critically, the time required, the speed.
So it's not about how fast?
Nope. Think of it like this. Bioenergetics tells you if climbing Mount Everest is possible starting from base camp. It is. People do it. It tells you the overall change in altitude, the energy difference. But it doesn't tell you if you'll take 2 days or 2 months or what route you'll take, or if you need oxygen tanks. That's a different question.
Okay, so what does tell us about speed?
That's the realm of kinetics. Chemical kinetics measures reaction rates, how fast they occur.
Got it. Bioenergetics, possible? Yes, no. Kinetics, how fast?
Exactly. Bioenergetics predicts if a process is possible. Kinetics measures how fast it happens. Two different lenses to view the same reaction, both vital for life.
That makes so much sense. Possible versus fast. Okay. And these reactions, these electron movements, they're not just isolated events, right? Our source is mentioned, connecting them to the bigger picture. How do these tiny electron transfers scale up to power whole ecosystems?
Yeah.
You mentioned the carbon cycle and anabolic versus catabolic reactions.
Right, that's where you see the elegance of it all. These fundamental redox reactions are literally the engine driving huge global cycles. Think about the carbon cycle. Plants perform photosynthesis. That's an anabolic process building things up. They take low energy, oxidized carbon, CO2, and use sunlight energy to reduce it, packing that energy into high energy sugars. Electrons are moved to a higher energy state.
So photosynthesis stores energy by reducing carbon.
Exactly. Then we eat plants or eat animals that ate plants, and our cells perform catabolic reactions breaking things down, like cellular respiration. We take those high-energy sugars, oxidize the carbon back to low-energy CO2, and release that stored energy for movement, warmth, thinking, everything. Electrons move back downhill.
It's a cycle. Oxidation and reduction passing energy around, using carbon as the carrier.
Precisely. This constant flow of carbon atoms, and more importantly, the electrons associated with them, cycling between oxidized and reduced states, that is the flow of energy through the entire ecosystem. It connects the sun, plants, animals, microbes, everything, a planetary redox engine.
Wow. It's kind of mind-blowing that the same basic electron shuffle powers a cell and the whole planet. Okay, let's quickly recap the core ideas we've hit. Redox reactions. Fundamentally about electron transfer, or that tug-of-war sharing. Lose electrons, oxidation, gain electrons, reduction, always paired.
The inseparable duo.
Electrons. Amazing little things. Units of energy, but the amount of energy varies depending on stability. And also units of negative charge, which is always constant per electron.
Correct. Energy varies, charge is fixed.
And finally, bioenergetics.
Yeah.
The rule book. Using concepts like free energy, it predicts if a reaction is even energetically possible for life. The gatekeeper.
That's a great summary, and really internalizing those concepts helps you appreciate the sheer efficiency and complexity going on inside you right now. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought you're having processing this, it's all running on these precise electron transfers governed by these thermodynamic laws. It's not abstract, it's you.
It definitely gives you a new perspective on just being alive.
It does. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on. We've established that bioenergetics tells us if a reaction can happen based on energy, but it tells us nothing about how fast. So, given that life needs reactions to happen incredibly quickly, constantly, what does it imply about all the other stuff involved? You know, the intricate molecular machines, the thousands upon thousands of specific catalyst enzymes that make sure these possible reactions actually happen at the speeds life requires, second by second. It just makes you think about the sheer level of orchestration and, well, biological ingenuity required to make it all work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beyond just is it possible lies, how on earth does it happen so fast and so precisely?